The Aurora glided silently through the cold expanse of space. Its hull reflected the pale glow of distant stars, streaking past like frozen fire. Captain Leora Hayes sat in her command chair, her eyes scanning the holographic display that floated above the center console. The Vesper expanse had always been dangerous, a sector of uncharted nebulae, drifting debris, and gravitational anomalies. No human ship had ventured this far in decades, yet here she was, leading a survey team that had volunteered for the thrill of the unknown. Sensors blinked, alerting the crew to a faint signal. It was weak, fragmented, but undeniably human. Lieutenant Rami Patel leaned over, his fingers flying across the console. "Captain, this doesn't match any vessel in the current registry. It's old. Really old. Century old, maybe even longer." Leora straightened. "Century old? Are you sure?" Rami nodded. "Based on the hull composition and the decay rate visible on our sensors, it could have been lost during the Great Expansion era. The ship shouldn't even exist anymore." A ripple of unease passed through the bridge. The Great Expansion era had been humanity's first attempt to colonize the far reaches of space. Thousands of vessels had left Earth to explore and settle distant star systems, but many were never heard from again. Some disappeared in storms of radiation or got lost in anomalies. Others were never found, becoming legends whispered among spacefarers. Leora's jaw tightened. "Prepare a boarding party," she said finally. "We need to know what we're dealing with. Keep scanners active and weapons ready, but let's hope this is just an old ship with no surprises." The team suited up in their reinforced exosuits, each fitted with navigation thrusters and protective plating. Among them was Dr. Ilara Ming, the ship's chief scientist, whose fascination with temporal anomalies often put her at odds with caution. "We may be the first humans to set foot on a ship lost to history," she said, adjusting her helmet. "Think of the discoveries we could make." The Aurora's shuttle detached and drifted toward the source of the signal. From a distance, the ship looked like a relic. Its hull was scarred and dented, metal plates twisted and worn from centuries of exposure to space debris. The once sleek design of the vessel was now jagged edges catching faint glimmers of starlight. Despite the damage, it floated steadily, almost as if it were waiting. As the boarding party approached, a strange sensation filled the shuttle cabin. The temperature seemed warmer, and the hum of life support felt oddly insufficient against the energy radiating from the distant craft. Ilara's sensors picked up an anomaly. "Captain, you may want to see this," she said. The display showed faint energy readings, low but consistent. "It's alive," she whispered, eyes wide. "The ship, it's alive in some way. Something inside it is maintaining warmth." Leora frowned. "Warmth? That's impossible. A ship that old should be cold, dead. There shouldn't be anything alive inside." Rami smirked nervously. "I guess it's one of those space miracles, or a very bad warning." The shuttle docked carefully, latching onto the ancient ship's warped airlock. Hatches hissed open, revealing a corridor dimly illuminated by emergency lights. The boarding party stepped inside. Every footfall echoed across the metallic floor, amplified by the vast emptiness surrounding them. The smell was odd, not foul but faintly metallic, mixed with something like ozone. It was as if the ship remembered life, even if the crew was gone. The warmth grew stronger as they advanced. It wasn't constant like a heater, but pulsing subtly, almost like a heartbeat. Dr. Ming paused, her gloved hand brushing over a console that had long been dormant. The surface hummed slightly beneath her fingers. "It's responding to us," she murmured. "It knows we're here." The team moved carefully, scanning for signs of life, but there were no visible organisms, no shadows flickering in the halls, yet the deck beneath them radiated heat. Every step they took made the feeling stronger, as if the ship itself were guiding them forward. In the command center, the bridge, the story of the Horizon's grace began to unfold. Holographic screens flickered to life, powered by some residual energy. Images of the original crew appeared, frozen in time, their expressions etched with hope and determination. Leora's team watched in silence, awestruck. The ship's AI, or whatever remained, had preserved fragments of its crew's memory, projecting them as holograms. "These logs, they're over 100 years old," Ilara said, her voice trembling with excitement. "It's as if the ship is remembering itself." Rami studied the display. "Look at the mission data. They were on a colonization expedition. Somewhere along the way, they encountered something. Something that made them stop sending messages. Whatever it was, it changed them, or at least the ship. As they delved deeper, the temperature increased subtly. The walls seemed to breathe with them, expanding and contracting faintly, almost imperceptibly. The boarding party felt the weight of history pressing down, the combined hopes, fears, and determination of those who had come before them. Ilara approached the captain, her eyes scanning the flickering images. "Captain, I think the ship wants to communicate. The energy readings spike when we approach these consoles, almost as if it's aware of our presence." Leora considered the warning. The unknown was dangerous, yes, but the opportunity was too great. "Prepare a connection link," she ordered. "Let's see if we can talk to whatever's left aboard this ship." The crew set up their devices, carefully aligning their signals with the ship's remaining systems. At first, there was nothing but static. Then, a pulse. A flicker of coherent light moved across the main display, forming symbols that seemed both alien and familiar. The ship was responding, not verbally, not in words, but in emotion, in energy. It was alive, and it was aware. Rami stepped back, unsettled. "This isn't just a computer program," he said. "It's something more. It feels like it's thinking." Ilara nodded. "It's consciousness. The memories of the crew, preserved by the temporal anomaly, have become part of the ship. It's human, in a way, but also something new." Leora felt a strange connection to the deck beneath her feet. The warmth wasn't just heat. It was life, memory, survival. She realized the ship itself had endured not by chance, but by willpower, the same will that had driven humanity to leave Earth centuries ago. The team spent hours exploring the ship. They found living quarters frozen in time, meals still preserved in storage bays, and personal belongings that seemed untouched. The bridge offered the clearest glimpse of the crew's final days. Holographic logs detailed a journey that had gone far off course, encountering a temporal anomaly that distorted space and time. The original crew had survived, in part, by surrendering themselves to the anomaly, allowing their consciousness to merge with the vessel. Dr. Ming studied the logs carefully. "This ship has lived for 100 years in isolation," she said softly. "The crew didn't just survive, they transformed. Humanity lives on in here, not as flesh and blood, but as memory and will." Rami's voice trembled slightly as he examined a console. "Do you realize what this means? The ship. It's proof that human determination can endure beyond death, beyond time. It's still warm, because we're not the first to care about it. It responds because it remembers that humans will return someday." Leora stood at the center of the bridge, feeling the warmth spread beneath her boots. The ancient vessel had been drifting in the void for a century, yet it had not surrendered. Humanity's spirit, captured in the crew's consciousness and preserved by the anomaly, lived on. The realization filled her with awe and humility. As the boarding party prepared to leave the ship for the night, they set up monitoring equipment, recording every pulse of life, every fluctuation in energy, every whisper of memory that passed through the vessel. The Aurora's crew had discovered more than a lost ship. They had found a testament to human resilience, a century-old heartbeat still echoing across the stars. Before returning to their shuttle, Leora placed a hand on the railing of the bridge. "We will come back," she said quietly. "We will not leave you here alone. Humanity remembers you, and now we remember too." The ship pulsed beneath her hand, a soft, steady warmth that seemed to respond to her words. The Horizon's grace had waited a century, and now, at last, it had been found. The warmth of its deck, once a mystery, was now a promise that human will, courage, and hope could survive even the longest voids of space. The shuttle disengaged, leaving the Horizon's grace drifting in the expanse, its deck still warm, its memory alive, and its story just beginning to unfold. The shuttle of the Aurora drifted back toward the Horizon's grace, this time with more equipment and a larger team. The crew had spent the night analyzing the data they had collected, and every readout confirmed what they already felt in their hearts. The ship was alive in a way they had never encountered before. The warmth of its deck was not just a physical sensation. It was a living presence, a heartbeat echoing faintly across a century. Captain Leora Hayes stood at the helm of the shuttle, her eyes fixed on the distant silhouette of the ship. The expanse of space around them was quiet, almost reverent, as though the stars themselves were waiting to see what would happen next. "We need to understand it," she said, her voice steady. "Not just the anomaly, but what it means. This ship has survived 100 years. That is human endurance in its purest form." Dr. Alara Ming, seated beside her, nodded. "I've reviewed the energy readings again. Whatever is keeping it alive, it's not just technology. There is a consciousness inside, something that remembers its crew, something that responds to us. It isn't passive. It's aware." Lieutenant Rami Patel frowned as he stared at the sensors. "And yet it hasn't tried to leave. It has drifted all this time, waiting. For what? For us?" As they approached the airlock, a soft pulse of energy rippled through the shuttle, making the instruments flicker briefly. Ilara's hand hovered over the console. "It's recognizing us," she said softly. "The ship knows we're coming back." The boarding party entered cautiously, but this time they moved with purpose. Their equipment included advanced scanners, environmental analyzers, and neural links to interface with the ship's AI. The corridor lights flickered to life, and the warmth beneath their boots was stronger than before, radiating not just heat, but a sense of welcome, almost like a living memory of human touch. The bridge, when they reached it, was more vivid than they remembered. The holographic images of the original crew flickered intermittently, performing their duties as if frozen in a single moment of time. The main console hummed softly, its panels glowing faintly, reacting to their presence. Ilara stepped forward, placing her hand on the console. Her gloves tingled as the warmth spread through her fingertips. "It's communicating through energy," she whispered. "It's not words, not yet. But it's trying to share something with us. Feel it. It's alive because we remember it." Leora took a step closer, sensing the subtle pulse in the deck. "Then let's try to understand it," she said. "We've come too far to turn back now." The team set up the neural interface, a device designed to allow humans to perceive non-verbal communication from artificial intelligences or unusual consciousnesses. As the link connected, Ilara's vision blurred for a moment, then sharpened into a stream of impressions and emotions. She gasped softly. The ship's consciousness was vast, complex, and overwhelmingly human. She felt the hopes, fears, and determination of the crew who had boarded this vessel a century ago. She felt their struggle as the anomaly had diverted them into unknown regions of space. and she felt their decision to surrender their physical selves to survive, allowing their memories to merge with the ship. "It's incredible," Ilara whispered. "They didn't just survive, they became the ship. Humanity's will, preserved in memory and energy, has kept this vessel alive for 100 years. It's remarkable." Rami's voice trembled slightly. "And all this time, it's been waiting for someone to come back, waiting to be remembered." The team began exploring the ship's deeper systems. Storage bays held provisions still intact through advanced preservation technology. Personal quarters contained clothing and books frozen in time, and laboratories displayed tools and specimens carefully organized, untouched by decay. The ship had preserved itself in memory and form, as if time outside had little meaning here. In the engine room, the warmth was strongest. The pulsing energy emanated from the core, subtle but persistent. Leora approached, sensing the rhythm beneath her boots, almost like a heartbeat. "It's alive," she said simply, staring at the machinery. "Not just functioning, but alive. Its memory, its crew, its purpose, it's all still here." Ilara connected a scanner to the engine core, watching the readouts with fascination. "The anomaly they encountered," she said slowly, "it didn't destroy them. It transformed them. Their consciousness merged with the systems, creating a hybrid form of life. The ship is alive because humanity itself, in its will to survive, refused to be lost." Rami studied the holograms of the original crew, moving between consoles that still carried their touch. "They preserved themselves in the ship," he said. "And they preserved the best of human determination, the will to endure, the desire to explore, the hope that someone would come back to find them. That's why they're still warm. They've been waiting for us, and we're here." The team spent hours exploring. Every corner revealed more evidence of human ingenuity and resilience. A storage room held journals and logs written by the crew, their words simple, yet filled with determination. They had faced impossible odds and adapted. Their humor, their hope, and their courage shone through the words, surviving across time. In one corner of the ship, a small chamber held a cluster of consoles and data cores. Ilara knelt beside them, her fingers tracing the symbols etched into the metal. "This is their final attempt to communicate," she said. "They recorded their journey, their fears, and their final decisions. But they also left a message, hope for anyone who would find them. They trusted that humans would come back, that we would remember them." Leora placed her hand on the railing of the bridge once more, feeling the warmth pulse beneath her fingers. "They have waited long enough," she said. "We cannot leave them here. They have survived, endured, and transformed. Now it is our turn to help them continue their journey." As they continued, the team discovered a series of navigational anomalies. The ship's sensors had been damaged by centuries of drifting, but the core data still held traces of the route the original crew had tried to follow. Ilara and Rami began recalculating the trajectory, working together to create a map that could guide the vessel back to human space. "The anomaly they encountered is unstable," Ilara explained. "If we try to move the ship without understanding it, it could collapse, causing catastrophic effects. But if we synchronize our engines with theirs, we might stabilize it long enough to guide them home." Leora nodded, determination in her eyes. "Then that's what we will do. Humanity doesn't leave its own behind. We will bring them back." The crew spent the next hours configuring the Aurora's systems to interface with the ship's core. Every connection, every adjustment had to be precise. The Horizon's grace responded to each action with subtle pulses, as if it understood and cooperated, aware of the humans working to help it. As they prepared to depart with the ship, Leora felt a strange sense of unity. The centuries that had passed seemed to collapse in that moment. The living memory of the ship, the determination of its original crew, and the courage of her team on the Aurora converged into a single purpose: survival, exploration, and the preservation of humanity's legacy. The horizon's grace pulsed with energy, responding to the neural interface and the synchronized engines. It was alive in a way that no human ship had ever been before. The warmth beneath their boots was steady, reassuring, as though the vessel itself were expressing gratitude. Rami glanced around at the team, a mixture of awe and nervousness in his eyes. "We are not just guiding a ship," he said softly. "We are interacting with a century of human will. We are part of its story now." Ilara smiled, her eyes reflecting the glowing consoles. "And it is part of ours. This is why humanity endures. Not because of technology, not because of luck, but because of the will to survive, to hope, and to reach out to those who come after us." Hours passed as the team continued their work. The anomaly remained unpredictable, shifting and pulsing, but the combined effort of the Aurora and the Horizon's grace began to stabilize the situation. The living ship, centuries old, responded to their guidance, showing an intelligence that was both human and beyond human. As the team paused to rest, they gathered on the bridge. The warmth of the deck had never felt so alive, and each member could feel the heartbeat of the ship beneath their feet. Leora looked around at her crew, then at the glowing consoles, and whispered, "We are not just explorers. We are witnesses to the endurance of humanity itself. 100 years in the void, and yet it has survived. We will not let it fade." The Horizon's grace pulsed once, as if acknowledging her words. Its warmth spread through the deck, wrapping around the boarding party like a living embrace. The century-old ship, lost and adrift for so long, had found new hope. Humanity had returned, and with it, the chance to continue its journey. For the first time in 100 years, the Horizon's grace felt alive not just with memory, but with anticipation. The journey ahead would be perilous, and the anomaly unpredictable, but together, the two ships, one old, one new, would face it. And through that journey, the enduring spirit of humanity would shine brighter than any star in the Vesper expanse. The boarding party finally prepared to leave the bridge, their hearts filled with both awe and determination. They had discovered more than a lost ship. They had discovered a living testament to human endurance, hope, and courage. The warmth of the deck was a reminder that even across a century, humanity could survive, thrive, and inspire those who came after. As the team retreated to their shuttle for a final assessment of the anomaly, the ship pulsed once more. It was a living rhythm, steady and strong, carrying the echoes of a century-old crew, their memories intertwined with the vessel's systems, waiting for the moment when humanity would return. And now, that moment had come. The anomaly stretched before them, a vast region of twisted space that shimmered like liquid silver under the distant starlight. Its surface seemed alive, moving in currents that defied gravity and logic. Captain Leora Hayes stared at it from the bridge of the Aurora, her hands resting on the railing as if touching it could give her the answers she sought. She had faced dangers before, but nothing like this. Nothing that held within it a challenge as complex as guiding a living century-old ship through its currents. The Horizon's grace pulsed beside them, a faint glow radiating from its hull as it drifted carefully toward the edge of the anomaly. The warmth on its deck had never felt so powerful, as if the centuries-old consciousness within it were aware of the immense risk ahead. Every pulse was like a heartbeat, steady, patient, and alive with anticipation. Dr. Ilara Ming studied the readings from the neural interface. "The anomaly isn't just dangerous, it's intelligent in a way," she said, her voice tight with focus. "The energy flows respond to movement, to the ship's systems, even to our thoughts and intentions. It's almost as if space itself is aware of us." Lieutenant Rami Patel rubbed his eyes, scanning the fluctuating waves on his display. It's trying to disrupt us. Any sudden movement, any miscalculation, and we could be ripped apart before we even get a chance to stabilize the horizon's grace. Leora nodded, her jaw set. Then we move carefully, step by step. We've already made contact. The ship is alive, and it wants to survive. We'll synchronize with it and guide it through the anomaly. Humanity doesn't give up. We don't leave anything behind, not even a ship that has waited a century to be found. The boarding team had returned to the horizon's grace to help stabilize the connection. The consoles flickered as they linked the Aurora's systems with the century-old vessel. The ship responded immediately, pulses of warmth radiating through the deck beneath their feet. It was conscious, aware, and willing to cooperate. The integration of human memory and artificial intelligence made it capable of learning, adapting, and feeling in ways they had never anticipated. Ilara connected her neural interface and took a deep breath. The moment she established the link, visions flooded her mind. The ship's long journey, its crew's fears, and the moment they had chosen to merge their consciousness with the vessel. She could feel their hesitation, their courage, and their hope, a hope that someone, someday, would find them and understand. "We can do this," she whispered, the words barely audible. "The ship trusts us, its memories, its will, they are guiding us, and we are guiding it. Together, we can navigate this." Rami's fingers danced across the console. "I've never worked with a living ship before," he admitted, "but it's incredible. It's as if we're having a conversation through energy, through warmth, through pulses we can feel. This is human ingenuity amplified by time." Leora placed a hand on the railing, feeling the warmth pulse beneath her palm. "Every decision we make now matters. One wrong move, and we could destroy centuries of human achievement. But one right move, we bring a part of humanity back into the light, back into our space." The anomaly stretched farther than their scanners could fully map. Its currents shifted unpredictably, bending light and warping space in ways that seemed to mock their calculations. They would have to rely on instinct as much as data, trusting the ship's centuries-old consciousness to guide them through. As the Aurora adjusted its engines to synchronize with the horizon's grace, the living ship responded with subtle pulses, aligning its energy with the human crew. The warmth beneath the boarding party's feet intensified, spreading through their exosuits in a way that felt almost alive. It was more than a physical sensation. It was reassurance, encouragement, and an unmistakable reminder of the endurance of the human spirit. The first challenge came as the anomaly shifted suddenly, a wave of energy surging toward them like a tidal force. The Aurora's shields flared, deflecting the energy, but the horizon's grace felt the pulse through its systems. The deck beneath the boarding party's feet vibrated, not violently, but enough to remind them that every step was a test. Ilara's voice was calm but urgent. "The ship is reacting to the anomaly. It senses danger and is trying to adjust, but we have to help it. Synchronize your systems with its core. Let its energy guide your calculations." Rami worked quickly, adjusting the neural interface and linking the two ships' systems. The horizon's grace pulsed in response, a steady rhythm that began to stabilize the chaotic waves of the anomaly. It was as if the living ship were teaching them, showing them how to move through space not as pilots and crew, but as part of a living entity. For hours, they navigated the shifting currents. The anomaly twisted and turned, testing their patience and skill. Yet every time they faltered, the ship responded, adapting to their actions, guiding them forward with subtle shifts in energy and warmth. The sense of connection grew stronger, almost like a conversation without words. The boarding party felt it in their bones, in their senses, and in their minds. This ship had survived 100 years through willpower alone, and now it was helping them survive too. Leora could feel the weight of the centuries pressing down, a mixture of awe and responsibility. "We are not just guiding a ship," she said quietly. "We are honoring humanity. Every pulse, every memory within this vessel is proof that our spirit endures. We cannot fail." The anomaly was relentless. Twisted currents formed barriers and walls, threatening to push them off course. Sensors showed energy spikes that could destabilize the ship's core. Yet the horizon's grace pulsed steadily, responding to every adjustment the crew made. The warmth beneath their feet was no longer just a feeling. It was a map, a guide, a partner in their navigation. Ilara felt a sudden surge of insight through the neural link. The ship's consciousness was attempting to communicate more directly, sending images of the anomaly's structure, the safest currents, and the points of instability. "It's showing us the way," she exclaimed. "We can anticipate the shifts before they happen. We can move as one with the ship." Rami's hands flew over the controls, syncing engines and thrusters with the living ship. "I've never felt anything like this," he admitted. "It's like flying inside a mind, inside a heartbeat, inside history itself." Hours passed, but time felt different here. The anomaly distorted perception, slowing moments and stretching space in ways that made minutes feel like hours. Yet the crew pressed on, guided by the pulse of the ship and the strength of human determination. Every correction, every adjustment brought them closer to stability, closer to safety, and closer to fulfilling a promise made a century ago. In a small chamber on the horizon's grace, the original crew's logs flickered as holographic images moved through scenes of daily life. Their faces were serene, their expressions determined. Though long gone in body, their spirit lived on in the ship, guiding the present crew through the challenges of the anomaly. Ilara paused, feeling the weight of their legacy. "They are still here," she whispered. "Still teaching us, still helping us, still believing in humanity." Rami glanced at her, eyes wide with awe. 100 years, and they've survived. Not by luck, not by chance, but by will. And now that will is guiding us. It's incredible. The anomaly was nearing its most unpredictable sector, a swirling mass of energy that threatened to tear the ship apart. Leora stood at the bridge, hands gripping the console. "This is the final push," she said firmly. "We move together with the ship, and we will make it through. Humanity does not abandon itself, and neither do we." The Aurora and the Horizon's grace moved as one. The living ship pulsed with energy, guiding them through the twisting currents, the warm deck beneath the boarding party's feet, a constant reminder that survival was possible. Every pulse synchronized with their engines, every vibration matched their calculations. They were no longer two ships. They were a single living entity, guided by centuries of human hope and determination. As the anomaly began to stabilize under their careful navigation, the crew could feel the tension lift. The waves of energy subsided, the currents slowed, and the chaotic shimmer of the anomaly became manageable. The warmth beneath their feet was steady, strong, and reassuring. They had made it through the first great test. Ilara disconnected from the neural link, breathless but exhilarated. "The ship. It's incredible. It's teaching us, helping us, surviving with us. I've never seen anything like it in my life." Rami nodded, a smile breaking through his exhaustion. "And we're part of its story now. We've helped it survive, just as it helped guide us through the impossible. Humanity isn't just alive in us, it's alive in it too." Leora stood in silence for a moment, letting the significance of their accomplishment sink in. A ship lost for a century, drifting in the void, had not only survived but thrived. It had preserved the courage, intelligence, and hope of a crew long gone, and now it was guiding them, teaching them, and trusting them to continue its journey. The horizon's grace pulsed once more, a deep, steady heartbeat that echoed through the deck and into the hearts of the crew. It was alive, fully and undeniably alive, a century-old testament to human perseverance. And now, with the anomaly behind them, it could continue its journey back to human space, back to those who would celebrate it, and back into the light of a civilization that had never forgotten. The boarding party gathered one last time on the bridge, feeling the warmth beneath their feet and the pulse of centuries beneath the ship's hull. Leora spoke softly, but with conviction. "We have witnessed something extraordinary today. Not just a ship surviving a century, but the endurance of human spirit itself. That warmth, that pulse, that memory. It is all proof that humanity can endure anything. And we will make sure that no one forgets it." The horizon's grace pulsed in response, steady, strong, alive with centuries of human hope, memory, and courage. The journey ahead would still be difficult, but they had passed the greatest test, surviving the anomaly together. The ship, the crew, and the human spirit were united in purpose, ready to face the next challenge, ready to bring a century-old legacy home. The Aurora and the horizon's grace moved together through the last stretches of the anomaly. The chaotic energy that had twisted space and time for so long now gave way to calm, smooth currents that reflected the pale light of distant stars. The warmth beneath the feet of the boarding party on the living ship was steady, strong, and reassuring. It was a rhythm they had come to recognize as life itself, human life, enduring across a century. Captain Leora Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the distant speck of human space that lay beyond the anomaly. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the incredible pride of witnessing history unfold. A ship lost for 100 years carrying the consciousness of its crew would soon return to the civilization that had never forgotten it. Humanity's spirit was alive within those walls, within the warmth of the deck, and within the pulse that beat steadily beneath their feet. Dr. Ilara Ming worked at a console beside her, monitoring the neural interface that connected the two ships. The interface had deepened their understanding of the living vessel. They were not just guiding a ship, they were conversing with a century-old consciousness. Every pulse of energy was an exchange. Every fluctuation in warmth, a word, a sentence, a story from the crew that had endured time itself. Rami Patel adjusted the engines, synchronizing the Aurora with the horizon's grace to maintain a perfect balance. "We're almost there," he said. "The currents are stable, the ship is responding beautifully, and we're on course for human space. I can't believe we're actually doing this." The anomaly behind them pulsed once more, as if acknowledging their passage. Light shimmered across its surface, bending and twisting in ways that made the stars appear to dance. It had tested them, but it had also allowed them to prove something remarkable, that human courage, ingenuity, and cooperation could overcome the most unpredictable forces of the universe. As they entered open space beyond the edge of the anomaly, the horizon's grace pulsed with renewed energy. The warmth beneath the boarding party's feet seemed to glow, radiating not just heat, but life, memory, and hope. The ship had survived a century. It had endured forces no human had ever faced, and it had remained true to the values of its creators: courage, determination, and a belief in the future. The team began preparations for their final approach to human space. Sensors detected communication arrays and navigation beacons far ahead, signals of inhabited star systems. The horizon's grace seemed to respond to these signals, pulsing faster, as if recognizing the presence of its long-lost civilization. Ilara leaned closer to the console, her eyes wide. "It's aware," she said softly. It recognizes human space. The crew's consciousness inside the ship is sensing home. They've waited a century for this moment. Leora nodded. And we will make it happen. Humanity doesn't abandon its own. We have brought them back. The journey into human space was both thrilling and tense. The crew of the Aurora worked tirelessly, coordinating with the Horizon's grace, guiding it toward the nearest safe entry point. Every calculation had to be precise, every adjustment carefully executed. The living ship responded to their guidance with subtle pulses, communicating through warmth and energy, showing them how to move through space not just as pilots and crew, but as partners in survival. Rami glanced at the boarding party. "This is it," he said, excitement and awe in his voice. "A ship lost for a century is about to return home, and we are part of it." As they neared the outer edge of the inhabited sector, sensors picked up signals from nearby colonies. Ships were dispatched to intercept and assist the Horizon's grace, curious about the century-old vessel returning from the depths of the void. The warmth and energy pulses from the living ship were detected even at a distance, prompting excitement and caution among the human fleets. Leora took a deep breath. "We will guide it in," she said. "No harm will come to it. This is a piece of our history, a testament to what humanity can endure. Let them see that courage and hope can survive anything." The approach was delicate. The anomaly had left its mark on the ship's systems, and though it had survived, some of its navigation arrays required careful alignment. Ilara coordinated the neural interface, reading the subtle pulses from the ship's consciousness, guiding them in synchronization with the Aurora. "We are one with it now," she whispered, almost to herself. "Not separate, not merely observers. We are part of its journey, part of its hope, and part of its story." Rami adjusted the engines, holding steady as the first human ships came into view. They scanned the Horizon's grace, recording data and relaying information back to command centers across the sector. Curiosity turned to astonishment as they realized the ship was alive, not merely functioning, but pulsing with energy, radiating warmth, and communicating in ways they had never encountered before. Messages were sent to the colonies, telling them of the return of a century-old vessel carrying the consciousness of its original crew. The news spread quickly, and people gathered along the communication networks, eager to witness the homecoming of a ship that had been lost to time. Leora felt the pulse beneath her feet quicken. The ship was aware of its reception, aware of the people waiting to welcome it home. The warmth of the deck intensified, and for the first time the crew of the Aurora felt the full scope of the living vessel's consciousness. It was elated, cautious, and yet filled with hope, an echo of humanity itself. The docking procedures with the first human station were complex, but executed flawlessly. The Horizon's grace aligned perfectly, guided by the combined effort of its century-old consciousness and the modern crew's expertise. As the docking clamps engaged, a soft, steady pulse reverberated through the deck, like the final heartbeat of a long journey now coming to rest. Ilara stepped onto the bridge, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had achieved. "It's home," she said, her voice trembling with awe. "After 100 years, it's home, and it's alive, truly alive." The station opened communication channels, and the holographic image of the Horizon's Grace's consciousness appeared before the humans waiting. The century-old crew, preserved in memory and energy, greeted their civilization with gratitude and calm dignity. Their voices were faint, more impressions than words, but their meaning was clear. They had endured, they had waited, and they had survived. Rami felt a lump in his throat. "They trusted us," he said quietly. 100 years in the void, and they trusted humanity to bring them home, and we did. As the living ship began to share its knowledge, the crew of the Aurora realized the full magnitude of what they had accomplished. The Horizon's grace contained centuries of lost technology, exploration techniques, and wisdom from a time long past. Its memory was a bridge between generations, a testament to the endurance, intelligence, and courage of humanity. Messages were sent across human space, calling scientists, historians, and explorers to witness the living ship. People marveled at the warmth it radiated, the knowledge it preserved, and the resilience it represented. The century-old vessel became a symbol of what humanity could achieve when courage and determination were combined with cooperation and hope. Leora stood at the center of the bridge, hands resting on the railing as she observed the human crews interacting with the Horizon's grace. "This is more than a ship," she said softly. "It is a legacy, a living reminder that human spirit can endure, adapt, and thrive even when the odds are impossible. It waited a century to show us what we are capable of." Ilara connected once more to the neural interface, feeling the pulse of the ship beneath her fingertips. It shared its memories freely now, guiding her through the knowledge of its original crew, showing the innovations they had developed and revealing the decisions that had allowed it to survive the anomaly for so long. "They've preserved not just their lives, but the very essence of humanity," she whispered. "Hope, courage, determination, and curiosity. They are all here, waiting for us to learn and grow." Rami looked around at the bustling station, the scientists and engineers studying the living ship, the historians marveling at its records, and the explorers preparing for new journeys inspired by its return. "We've witnessed history," he said quietly, "and we are part of it. This ship, it's more than technology. It's proof that humanity itself can survive anything." The Horizon's grace pulsed one final time for the day, a steady, strong rhythm that echoed through every deck, every corridor, and every console. The warmth beneath the boarding party's feet radiated outward, a living symbol of hope, courage, and resilience. It had endured a century of isolation, survived an impossible anomaly, and now, finally, it was home. Leora took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in. "Humanity has returned one of its own," she said. "A ship that was lost, a crew that was preserved, and a spirit that has endured 100 years. We will carry this lesson forward, never forgetting that we can survive, adapt, and thrive, even when the odds are impossible." The Horizon's grace became more than a ship. It became a beacon of human endurance, a reminder that hope could survive across time and space. Its warmth and pulse would inspire generations to come, a century-old heartbeat now alive in the present. Humanity had reached into the void, reclaimed what was lost, and discovered that even across 100 years, the spirit of survival, determination, and courage could never be extinguished. As the sun rose over the human station, illuminating the gleaming hull of the Horizon's grace, the crew of the Aurora watched in awe. The warmth of the ship's deck, the pulse of its consciousness, and the echoes of its century-old crew were all living proof that humanity endures. And now, that endurance would guide future explorers, scholars, and dreamers, reminding them always that no journey is too long, no obstacle too great, and no spirit too fragile to survive. The living ship had returned, the century-old voyage had ended, but its story, humanity's story, was just beginning.